thought that I was make as an extra session to add some extra things, but I started to explore more in each element and
Mm-hmm.
on different uh, parts of the frequency. So I think I will take out some things.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
it's changing.
I do think like having a very solid, simple thing, there's like elegance in it. Like when I was talking
Mhm.
to you before earlier, like I went to fine dining, and like fine dining is like all about like making the plate look perfect, and like getting rid of like stuff that doesn't look good, and like all this kind of like you turn into like this like kind of like robot, like and you
Mhm.
need things like in a perfect like angle or whatever, however you're doing it, deconstructing or whatever. Then I told you I went to like this rustic place, and then I was having problems plating, and the chef is like, "You're trying too hard." And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, since when is like trying hard like a problem? And he's like, you need to like let it fall down from like heaven. And we're like middle of the rush, and I kind of like roll my eyes, like, what the fuck does that mean? you know? But then like later when it became like habit, like I like, oh, I could like, it's like that doing without doing, like, you know what I mean? Like you do it so much that it becomes like like a habit, like a reflex, like something that you could like,
Yeah,
yeah, start to
yeah,
craft, yeah.
definitely.
And
So yeah,
yeah.
I think now it's getting more. You know, another thing is that I take out the guitar and bass textures because I think that nature and sounds of nature is where I took these these melodies, these
Hmm.
rhythms.
That was the
So
first seeds and the first conception of it.
yeah, yeah, it's like how can I put something on it? It doesn't need it. It's all there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's already there. So I took it off, and yeah, I'm playing with the deeper. I'm getting deeper in each element in the river. So I
Okay.
take out. I playing with the bass part of the river, which is really bubbly and super nice. So like exploring each part and take what I like out a little bit, and yeah, it's getting more complex but more simpler at the same time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been working on it the whole day. Well, the whole afternoon
Nice.
after my job. Yeah. So what's going on, guys? Sorry,
No,
I'm
it's
just
all good.
very excited. Yeah.
But
Ah.
I do think like what I was telling you earlier. So like today's the first day of the new cycle, and today was kind of like ceremonial like flame, which was like pretty good, like way to start off things. And and then there's also like stuff about like I think I mentioned it one time earlier, but the symbol also means about like the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into like a piece of work or whatever, and then it
Yeah.
kind of like paying off, uh, which is interesting. And in relationship to like the song and stuff like that, and like how it's like progressing. And then the other day was the seed, and what was interesting about like learning about like the a little bit about like the symbol and what it meant, like the corn seed. And there's a lot of symmetry between like corn growth and harvest, and like the 9 months, the full cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
I think about that too with our ideas. I think it just related to anything, but like more directly to like whatever we're doing in narrative mandala slash Imaginarium. Having those seeds of like what we want to do, like setting our attention for the mandala of the 13 days. and like how we reflect, and then like what we want to grow within, our certain attention, and where we put our extra like energy at and stuff like that. That's how I've been thinking about my progress
Sure.
with the Mayan count, like things that I learned too. And even what was interesting, it was a couple of days ago, so it was the death one. I think that was like 3 or 4 days ago, whatever. But anyways, my friend, she hits me up, right? And usually I do the count like a later on in the day, because I like to like fill out the day and then reflect on it, and then I'll be like, okay, I could see that, instead of like doing it early and then it kind of like having it affect like my bias. You know what I mean? Like it just have it in the back of your head or whatever. So anyways, I do the count earlier because my friend was coming over, and I was just thinking, if we go out and do something, or then I don't want to like not do it. So I was like, okay, let me do it. And then so we're hanging out, blazing it, and then we get into talking, and she's telling me about like some of her stuff going on, and then I mention about the Mayan stuff, and then I tell her, because like she tells me something, and then I tell her about like what the sign was, and so we talk about like what the meaning of the sign is, and it was like so meaningful in that moment of like what we were talking about, what she was dealing with. And then like following that impulse to like do the count early, so then like if we just happen to talk about it, then I could like mention what today is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I've been participating and collaborating with these groups from Latin America. This group started studying about the Jean-Pierre Mallet Garnier theory, and they developed this lady from Argentina, Alejandra Casado. She developed she goes deeper. Let's say it that way. She goes deeper on it, and yeah, she gathered a lot of people like looking for something in it, and very interesting because very easily and very fast it goes to ethics, immediately, they go there. And it's funny because they also, think a lot about, they discuss about timing, and they make analysis of information in the media, in lettering, in the streets, everywhere. They are taking like lectures from everything, and they have this system to analyze it, through different, some kind of logic. I didn't learn it, to be honest, but it's very interesting. But what I notice is that it always, you can, it's like music, you can make always like put more figures into one single box. It's endless.
Yeah,
So you get lost in some point in so many cables, because everything is connected, and everything is, it's too much.
Yeah.
So you get lost again, when you started to, they probably, analyze the movements of the biggest, the planets and stars and everything, and they started to put it on different scales, and you get some point that it's too much. You can get crazy there.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
you could mistake the figure for the ground, and the map for the territory.
And also get into a loop, and don't be able to manifest.
That's why that's why I like Zen Buddhists or Taoists, like like philosophy and like parables, because they're always like about that, like, okay, like, you know, there's like two ways to reach enlightenment, and, you know, it's either like the Zen lunatic way, or, you know, following the strict diamond rule or whatever. And like you get towards the end, and it's either like, you know, they slap you in the face and you know, what is the sound of enlightenment or whatever, and it comes down to just like being present, like all those are like tricks to like getting you into what is already should spur out like organically, you know, without any
Yeah.
without any
Yeah, you know, it's like when you're jamming, you know, like you have the tempo, you feel in it, you go
Yeah.
with it, but in some point you need to be able to flow
Yeah.
in the middle
Yeah.
of it, you know, like then you don't count it anymore. You just
Yeah.
do whatever you want. and
You know, when
yeah.
when we were doing open mic night on Minds that one time for that moment, and then we started to call like what we were doing double Dutch, and like to say like, you know, like there's like a little rhythm, and then once we get into that rhythm, then we jump in, and then like you could start to like do different like your own moves or whatever, you know what I mean? But like, we always had kind of like a open that like got us into like, okay, one of us had to like prepare how to open, right? And so we'll come out and we'll kind of like give it to each other, say, hey, this is how I'm gonna start. So like you kind of have you know, like the tone gets set, and then it's kind of like always, and then okay, we're gonna end with this person, but then like in between there it could be anything, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think that's what we're getting to too with the reading the mandala book, right? It's about finding your axis and like your center point. You know, finding what you were saying, finding your compass and like some coherency to navigate like the endless possibilities.
Yeah, I learned a lot about that in exercise with Robert, because you know this guy creates these landscapes, you know, sound landscapes,
Okay.
and it's by inertia, you know, is not planning at all, but you realize that in some point you can make whatever, and you put some tempo on it, and it will fit. You know, like always, whatever you put in it, you know, like it always get in there and make sense at the end. You know, it's like unexpected, but you don't have control of it. That's the part. Well, that's my favorite part. You know, when you lose control and magically it fits.
Yeah, that's the weird.
yeah, exactly. It's like when you know, I'm doing like it happens with loops, with delays.
Oh, okay.
You know, you're playing out with delays, and you create these whatever, and then you put a rhythm on it, and it fits automatically. It doesn't matter what you do. You can do whatever you want, and it will fit. And then you can put another random thing on it, and it will fit also.
Don't you find though that eventually the fit is gonna become familiar or something, and then it's not what you're looking for anymore, and you start to get interested in how it changes, and that little wiggle that creeps in. That's what I find anyway. I'm a much more amateur musician, so for me, like I hear what you're saying about that same experience. Like the few times I've written songs, being able to hear like the music part and then the vocal part and then different parts of the song, it's like you're hearing the same thing from different angles. But also there's always this element with me, if I try this out, what happens? What's or I try to play something in my head and it reflects something really different back to me, and I need to go decide something else to chase now.
Yeah. Mm.
Kind of that drunkard's walk of improvisation again, I guess.
Yeah. What you mean when you're making some tune, or you're creating something, or in
Yeah.
that moment, and how you approaching the possibilities?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just kind of shoot my shot, and my incompetence becomes my muse. But I was even saying that you could be the best person ever with playing loops and all, but unless you allow yourself like room to be surprised by the unexpected, then
Oh yeah.
you'll get bored.
Definitely, because in some point, let's say you crack the music, like you find out that it's all a fractal, and it's iterations of the same infinitum. So it could be easy to get bored. Like, yeah, I could do, but when we explore these other possibilities, when it gets out of our control, it gets alive again. It's not only theory, it gets like real. Like it's happening. Yeah, that's why it's so cool to work with other people, because you don't know what to expect, and it's great. It's what makes it magical.
Shit, that other call we had where it cut me off saying just let your word be, which is not the actual quote from Four Agreements, but it wound up better that way anyway.
Yeah.
And now I changed it instead to let the word breathe, or the word must breathe. Yeah. Like we have to have that negative space, or forget what we think we know. Now I'm thinking about like a circle of people all holding jump ropes, but they hold them with like the person 3 people down. Or, I don't know. I'm looking at this hyperbolic mandolin right now.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of jump ropes.
Well, when I was first messing around with it's an inversion circle fractal or whatever, and I was just like, I'm like, because like the default setting is like on 4 or whatever, and so it was like set up like kind of like how a lot of the Mayan like tree of life kind of stuff is set up, and so that's what I saw like at first, and then I'm like, oh shit. And then like later I'm like, okay, these are all like the circles are like the fractals, right? And so that's like a complete set of like, say, someone's whole like narrative, right? And then them like colliding, like all 4 of them colliding, and then that like weird space, and then if you like look at it, it's like alive, meaning like it moves like of noise on its own, like that's like a weird
optical illusion.
Yeah, that like it has where it has like random shaping around the edges,
Sure. Yeah. It happens. I was experimenting with the mandala thing. It also happens, like different illusions. Like make you feel like, this is vibrating. This, like,
yeah. Like that's what I like about like just having the simple design that I have for the Mayan count. And so it, like every time I just kind of like look at it, and it feels like the signs like radiating. It's like it's just like glowing. It's just like, okay, that's
like
cool.
vibrating.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Satori, something I kind of forgot, but way back when I proposed in our early DMs that I would help organize the stuff that you were sending me, kind of all related to tech, but also kind of all over the place. I was actually saying that coming from using that rotating toroid journal I used to have in Simple Mind, and I'm not sure how to explain like why I stopped using that, or it was all complicated. Like it was totally dependent on my own novelty at the moment, which kind of got swept up in the exchange and the back and forth. But I do have that app on my system right now, and it would definitely be doable to make a map for say like the 2013 the whole Mayan calendar. Like I could have 2 or 3 rotating wheels and like rotate them in maybe with supplemental information just to like generate these graphics kind of somewhat systematically. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, you know,
I know you're kind of doing that already.
Yeah, because I'm glad you mentioned that, because you were mentioning too about I think it was like in decoding the weird when I did this week's, I mean this cycle's you know, sign, what do you call it? And
Nawal.
Yeah, the Nawal. Anyways, you said about like like hyperlinking it and all that kind of stuff, and I was already kind of thinking, you know, in similar thoughts about like. Anyways, I saw in tech they were mentioning. I think he's one of the web developers, but about like working on like a prototype for. It seems like Gene's thing about like using the NFTs to like facilitate like discussions or whatever. Yeah. And I was also wanting to talk to StreamerD about like, because I think like setting up the Mayan count like as like this like rotating thing, it's very similar to what StreamerD is doing, but it's like the opposite, right? So like it's like every day you're supposed to like, or theoretically every day there's someone putting up an expression of peace or whatever, right? This one is like there's like a general like prompt or vibe or tone, and then it's like, okay, like
cool,
like have like this like reflection, and then like see like it's like I think like the feedback is like, well, you know, earlier we're talking about this is like playing with it and then seeing what emerges and then like following those kind of like curiosities.
More about like a public graffiti wall.
Yeah,
graffiti
totally.
Board. Though ideally it wouldn't be a plane, it'd be a torus or something more like that. And
so like depending on where you go, you start to merge your own landscape. You know what I mean? Like the yeah. That's what's interesting about like what I keep on thinking about the hyperbolic stuff. I haven't used it that much, but I used it a little bit. The Hyper Rogue or whatever.
Yeah, the game.
Yeah, it's
or the code.
Yeah. So it's like a never-ending, you know, like landscape. It's interesting, some of the areas. But yeah.
Yeah, I was reading. I sent you the article about the cochlea, this little organ that we have in our
Looks like
um,
a seashell.
yeah, and it is actually a sound harvesting system according to that article. You know, it works like that. It has like tensors, little tensors, and like it has more for the high frequencies, and a little less for the low frequencies, and it actually harvesting the sound and transform it. No, it harvests the energy, or like
I just
the
love
waves, and transform it into energy.
that.
So yeah, when,
Oh
when we
yeah.
talk, we recharge ourselves
Yeah, yeah.
through that using the cochlea. So I was, I've been thinking about this device, like sound harvesting device. Like you can, instead of making a huge, like represa. How you say that in English? Like these plants, like you block the river, and yeah,
Oh, like damn.
you just harvest the sound of a huge natural cascade or
Yeah.
whatever.
You know,
Like you look for sources everywhere.
similar but a little bit off. The other day, I was listening to the sound of like Earth's magnetic field. It's so
Hmm.
creepy. It's so creepy.
It
but
is.
but
It is.
it's like it pops and then it like has like this like humming motion to it,
Yeah.
and it like screeches sometimes. Like it's weird
Yeah, it is.
to think about.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird sound. Yeah, it's very complex and
Yeah.
mysterious. It's like,
Yeah.
like the how it's a frequency, but
Uh-huh.
has a name. They put a name on it.
Okay.
I think it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
They call it like how they call it. I forgot.
The brown
Schumann. The
voice.
Schumann. The Schumann frequency is.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's the Schumann. Let me check. Yeah, the Schumann resonances. Yeah, yeah. I think is what are you saying, right, Satori?
Yeah.
Isn't it,
Yeah.
or is something different? Is the same?
No, I think so.
Well,
From the atmosphere. A
yeah,
solar
but that
spectrum.
that one sounds very, very weird. Also,
Yeah, somebody was talking about that. Maybe it'll come to me.
yeah, I was in the river yesterday, and I was paying attention to the low frequencies, and this place near a volcano, an active one. So
Wow.
you can, if you pay attention. I think I have some good ears, but if you pay attention, you listen like the movement, like of the earth, like
Yeah.
something is
Yeah.
moving in there. In the
Totally.
river, you can like feel it like more. It's
Mm.
creepy. Yeah.
Well, that's like one of my significant like a mushroom trip. I think like when I finally, I would say had a significant mushroom trip was that I was on the beach in Santa Cruz, and then I could just feel the whole beach like breathe. And this wasn't like some intellectual like concept of like the earth is alive. No, it was like I was like on this like living breathing thing, like sitting on like a whale or something that was just like moving on its own and then doing its own thing. And I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. This is what it really is though.
Yeah. Yeah. Like yeah, that happens. Like you realize, like what it's. Oh, this was in front of my eyes the whole time.
Yeah.
and everything changed. Like I was, a while ago I was more into that. Like I was living in an apartment, and it changed the whole time. Like it was never the same. Like changing all the time. Like little little things, and the neighbor also. Actually, in Concepcion, in that place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like a. But now I guess like for example, this other place I'm living right now is like more stable. It doesn't change that much. You know what I mean? Like, but by that moment, in Concepcion, also the people change, and I think I was just in the well. By that time, I was following that calendar. I was
Okay.
the yeah also,
You
and
know, oh my god, this is great because it just reminded me of this thing that I didn't read like all of it, but I skimmed it pretty good, and I was reading other things related to it. But there was some like scientific article about how primary language affects like sight or like color or something like that, and people were talking about it, and that anyways, it's just interesting about how just on a basic level how language affects our perception, right? And like
totally.
to the same thing is like our relationship with time and like how we think time affects our perception, and then all of that like which which we think is maybe signal, but it could also be noise of like blocking out what we're kind of like talking about, like this more dynamic signal of reality.
Yeah, I remember, like, I don't know, like maybe like 5 years ago, I was sitting in the living room in this other apartment, and I had this experience of like a roulette, like I was like sitting in this place, and the place start to change, like different, like little differences, like the same place but without that bottle, and the same place but without that whatever, like little changes, and it starts to move. Like I had this vision, like it moves and moves and moves, and then I choose like, okay, I want this one, and it stays. That was crazy. It was like modulating into different dimensions. I thought it was like that. Is this sensation of, well, by that time, but by that moment, I was very into developing that, starting with looking for to be present, like looking to into that, like what is to be what is to be, what is to be in the moment right here, and I was into meditation a lot, and I was like full-time dedicated to that. So yeah, I had all these kind of crazy things happen, like that one, or the other time, I just went out to the garden, and crazy stuff, like when you start to look into it. And yeah, but it was like a roulette, like a roulette. You and change, and you choose. Okay, this one. I don't know if I changed the whole, like everyone and everything. Like, when I was in the roulette, I don't know if I changed to another universe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you changed.
I didn't know if I changed my girlfriend. This is not her anymore. Like, I just switched.
You could have branched off versions of us.
Exactly, like little different different versions, like very similar. That's why, like, I think the one possibility is that when you die, you just simply can't die because you just jump to the next moment.
Have you ever
Like,
seen?
when you go really deep into it, you're like,
Have you ever seen this movie called Waking Life?
Waking Life?
Yeah,
No?
Waking Life. And so Waking Life is like, at first it's like this dream inside of a dream inside of a dream, and then like later you kind of figure out like this, it's this guy who's stuck in this dream, and then he kind of like
It's animation.
Yeah, it's filmed, but it's also animated over like anyways. But it's, I remember seeing this movie back in college, like in this dorm up in like the Bay Area, San Francisco, and we were all smoking weed. It was kind of funny. I'm visiting my friend, and then his like dorm room, neighbors or whatever were smoking a blunt, and they're like, "Oh, can anybody roll a blunt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can." And so I go over there and I'm rolling this blunt for them, and they're talking to me. They're like, "We're watching this movie called Waking Life," and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen it." And then they're like, "You haven't seen it?" And they're telling me about it, and we're getting all high, and then we watch it, and I watched like the end of it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this movie's so crazy." And then but it totally like reminded me of this like mushroom trip I had one time. And then like it was so funny like how it all like happened, like how it unfolded, like this, like me getting introduced to the movie, and then it like triggering this experience I had on mushrooms, and it all tied it together about like, okay, so one time I was on mushrooms, and like we were going to pick up like liquor, and I get really paranoid, and I think, what about if like I die or something? And so like I'm like going into like these weird little like thought visions because I'm on mushrooms, right? And then I'm like, oh my god, and then I'm like, oh well, I'll just run, and then I'm like, oh my god, I could get shot, and then I'll just die. And then when I had that thought about like just dying, like I instantly like wake up, like if I woke up from a dream.
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my god, this is so weird. And I'm like, I'm me, but not me. And it's like if I woke up from a dream, but this is like a new life. And then I go back, and I'm like in my body and in this car with this guy or whatever. But the whole movie like premise is kind of like that. It's like he dies, but he's stuck in a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream, and it's like all this like process of like everything. It's interesting. But I do think it's something like that. I mean, I think you or whatever you consider you, like your ego, yourself, Daniel, like dies, but that's not really you either. And like any of this meditation or psychedelics or dreams like points to this like a larger context of what you are, is like, like consciousness, like, without an object, like without a personality, without anything like that. This ocean of energy that we're in, we're just like a drop.
Yeah, definitely. No, we're just immersed in it. Yeah. Like just having a good time.
Just having a good time on the edges of the abyss.
What else? I was talking to this friend. She has a hotel in Monteverde, near like where Robert lives, and she she's from Germany, and she moves to there just because she wants to be in the forest. And I was telling her, like, what else, man? What else? What else we need? Like we it's kind of addictive, to be honest. I'm a little scared to get off, like, very away from nature now. Like I really need it. I get a little like, I need to go. Today I get off my job like at before, and I was like, okay, I want to go. I want to go to walk a little bit, but I need to work on that track. I'd said to stay, but you have this impulse because you have everything there. Like you feel like, well, in my personal, it's like I feel like I don't need anything else. Like all desires, as the song
there's
said,
this funny.
it's not that I don't have desires. Of course I have a lot of them. But like when you get there,
it goes back to like what we were saying, and there's this funny interview that I read one time about Allen Ginsberg, and he's getting interviewed by this guy, and it's like in the early 70s. So Allen Ginsberg's kind of like popular, right? And he kind of asks Allen Ginsberg like all these questions, like he's a guru and stuff like that. Then Allen kind of like laughs, and he says something like if I was truly enlightened, I wouldn't be writing all this poetry. He's like, I struggle with it, that's why I write so much. But if I had the perfect Buddha mind, like I wouldn't need to say anything, I wouldn't need to do anything.
No, that's right, exactly. It's like my I was hanging out in this library about for 15 years, something like that, like not 10 years, not 12 years, something like that. Every day I was I was going there every day because the tons of books and tons of interesting people from everywhere, and different disciplines and all of that. So I made some good friends, and sometimes like old friends, like my friend Louis. He's from California, actually, from Nevada City, and he he went to Maria Sabina like in the 70s to get the mushrooms and all of that. So he's 79. He's a surgeon, veterinarian. So he goes into the seeker path like for many times, and that's why he said to me all the time, don't do anything. It's like when I have this and that, this plan, I want to do this, and he's like, don't do anything. And I get it. I get it. You like, what I mean? It's not like, it's different. When I want to do this, like from like as Gurdjieff says, like that I, what I is that I, like who wants to do the things.
But I do think, and this is kind of gets touched in that mandala book, and later on in the Mayan book that he that Jose writes. Anyways, that there is this like collective coordinated mind that like we have to like learn to like heal like the earth. Like there's like no way for us, like if we don't like learn how to like work and think collectively, like at a fundamental background level. And then like on top of that, like, you know what I mean? Like our whole orientation.
No, definitely.
And it's
no,
like,
it's the building. It's the building of everything. Satori. It's the building. It's the building of every system. It's like you get here and you watch around, and what you see is fractals everywhere. You just have to copy. You have all the answers for the test. You don't have to be so creative. Actually, it's like, okay, it's very easy. Like, let's replicate this. In everything we do. But actually, the idea that we are not doing it, it's very amazingly incredible also. Like to get out of that, it's a great thing actually also. I believe so. Like uh all the all the madness, all the craziness, and all the wrong, and all the it's about all the pain, all how that mind it's getting, like it's getting feed out of those experience.
Yeah.
Right, like the psychic apparatus of the earth, let's call it that way, because we've been talking about this a lot of times, like we don't have control, right? We're just little things created by the earth, so the earth is in charge. The things that we think that we are the protagonist, like the main characters of the story, but this is the story of the earth, and we are part of it.
That's kind of like the magic words for me to hear right now, because to bring it back to the mindfulness a little bit, I've been revisiting that some myself, and it's I guess for me it's like a new way to rationalize it, just bringing attention back to my breathing and whatever situation. And my rationale is that the first thing I need to set some standards for the mental associations I make, so I don't just connect everything all the time, get overwhelmed, because there's just way too much. So I need to be able to establish this silence in which I can listen, and the logical place to start with that would be my own body. If I'm disconnected from the rhythms going on inside me, I can't hope to be able to monitor some abstract space outside me.
Yeah.
But it's complicated because whenever I get into mindfulness, like I'll become less social, which causes its own problems. And I'm trying to branch out more with my community of coworkers, and some of the people there are like they live with this gossip energy, and it's always kind of been a challenging thing for me. But I see now it's got this unique value. It's a form of social intelligence where people can dance inside the center of the cyclone. I've even been thinking about like planning ahead, like training myself to like, what are my weaknesses going to be in conversation? Like, how can I leverage my empathy to be more present with this person? And it seems like a polarity, but the moment you said that we're like small things belonging to the earth and created by the earth, I just kind of felt it like, oh yeah, that's the signpost to the center, where I don't have to get caught in those polarities in this case.
Yeah, and also, it has to do with the attachment. Get unattach it. But when you get you like a step out, but in that moment you also get amazed, right? Like you step out of everything, like you detach yourself from everything, but in that moment you get amazed also. And the moment you get that point of observation, when you detach yourself from everything, and like when it's like this moment when you can say this is nice or bad, or you don't know anything. You you just observing, like that's the moment when you can really contemplate without judgment. And that moment, but in order to do that, you need to detach also from yourself, is what Satori was saying. You need to you need to get out of everything, all your personality, your mind, everything that you think you are, and you get out. And but in that specific moment, also you get amazed by everything, because everything is
Yeah,
so fucking
you know,
amazing.
that's like I have this like annoyance with this like term of like higher consciousness, but like as I go along my life and how to describe certain things and thinking about it for my own self, it's like a deeper connection to consciousness. It's going subhuman. I remember one time I was talking and then I like, oh my god, that's what the subhuman kind of like references, like going more into like I like when I did that video, the rhythm of life, like the one of the biggest lesson was to be within my body and my own rhythm. And that's why I constantly talk about like the heartbeat of the universe, or like my heartbeat. And I used to talk about this all the time, even before I started like really learning the Mayan stuff. And like they were the two main energies that they talk about is, and they reference it, like if you take it literally, it's the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth. And then they're all referencing like some kind of center that pulsates,
Yeah, yeah, the connector in between. But it also, John, it also has to do with going back to when we were kids. Like it's that feeling, because one amazing characteristic that we have when we were little is that we didn't know anything. That's great. So you have everything to create, and you can build the world. So when you get in that state, you have like that opportunity
Yeah.
again, like to
And
rebuild.
Yeah,
to
you
tie
can
it,
reverse
Yeah.
like decisions you made back then.
and then also too, kind of referencing Blake, right? This is what Blake was kind of talking about with kind of the child, and I remember like when I was getting into Blake and reading about Allen Ginsberg, I had this dream, and it was this dream. It like there was like this thing that kept on echoing about like holy eyes, and it is referencing like like if the doors of perception were cleansed, you'll see reality for truly what it is, and then that dream was referencing Blake, but I believe it's that innocence of that fresh blank slate, and the not collapsing of any of those possibilities, because there's the reason why I love Cosmic Trigger, because there's this one passage in it where Robert Downton Wilson is talking about his kids, and like his older there was his son was like 1 year old or something, and then daughter was like 3 or 4, and like whispers something to like the toddler before like they're going to sleep or whatever. And then later he asks, like, what did you say? And she's like, oh, I was asking him, how does God's touch feel? Like, because I'm beginning to not remember, or something like that. And just like, even like that young age, like her voicing that, like, oh, that's like purity of awareness and consciousness is closer to like, my words are going to be like to the source or whatever, which is interesting. And then going back to that one article that I was saying about how language affects like your primary affects your perception.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it everything. Like Spanish. Spanish it's more poetic than like and it has this all. It's complex.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mentioned this before, But that's the interesting thing about like unraveling this whole thing with the Mayans, and understanding it from their perspective and how they use language, and with those symbols they're dynamic. It's a lot more analogous to like Chinese characters, and it's like relative to the concept, and like one symbol can mean like 50 different things. And it's all in context to like the count, and so that's I think I told Within the Vacuum this. I don't know if I told you this, John, but I was reading this thing and it's called cosmoletics, like dialectic or cosmoletic. Anyways, the person was saying about this linguist was talking about the Caribbean and how he didn't want to use dialectic to like talk about like their communication. He wanted to use dialectic, like the tides, and it's like all their stuff has to do with the tides and this and that, because they traveled around. And the currents and all this kind of stuff. So like that's what the rhythm and the logic of their communication is. And then so she says, I want to expand on that for understanding the Mayans and anything Mesoamerican like literature of their perspective. It's cosmoletics, meaning it's all in relationship to the cosmos and enlightenment with the cosmos. Like that's how you understand how they use the walls, how they use certain symbols and stuff like that. So they were talking about their selves too, but also in like reflection into the bigger mandala, right? And that's what these things would mean, and what they were trying to get into, and the different things that they were talking about. And so like that idea of, because that's what I liked about Taoist. I remember the first time I read the Tao Te Ching, I got it from my girlfriend because she knew I was into like Jack Kerouac and Buddhist like stuff. So she gives me this book, and I remember reading it in my anthropology class, and I couldn't put it down. Like I was just like, oh my god, like this doesn't make like I was from there. I was used to like English, logical, like sequencing, and this was like, it doesn't make sense, like logical sense, but there's like some wisdom to this.
I think that would be a good one for a group study. Yeah. Find a good guide to it, because I had like a similar feeling of like exhilaration when I first discovered it. Yeah.
And it messes up with that language thing, and this Tao logic. And I think too, the more I get into it, and I want to let my research breathe too before I make more. But there's this in my own intuition. Because I know from my own research and from my own experiences too, it's also in relationship to like dreams, like not in this like a metaphorical way, but like actual dreams. And like there's like a certain dream logic. And I was like listening to this one guy, he was talking about like DMT rounds and like this like clown dimension thing. Anyways, and then like the trickster
clown dimension,
but he was talking about like the tricksters too, and like these like kind of malevolent entities. And then I'm just like, like there is a certain, which I think Robert Anton Wilson does really well, and that's why I kind of like always refer to him for like bringing it into language that we could like better understand and use, versus like reading something like Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda, which is good, but it's kind of like esoteric language. But there is a certain logic, a dream logic that there is to it, and I think a lot of it has to do too with this tone, and there's like a certain ebb and flow, and I don't know, it's weird, it's interesting, but I do think messing around with like even the collages and think like what William S. Burroughs says, thinking a lot outside of words, and expressing things a lot with outside of words, which with music. Yeah.
no, but the symbolism,
Mm-hmm.
the actual we can see the sound,
Yeah.
like in a way that's different, and it is a more fundamental language, and I believe it will lead us to the cosmos, to learn that language and to understand
Mm-hmm.
how, like the how it works. It would open the door for the next level of civilization, probably.
Yeah, that is how I feel about language as well. Kind of feel it's our only hope. But when I try to zero in on what I mean by that, it all falls apart, which kind of gets back to how words are containers. I think that was from the article on Zhuangzi, the Chinese philosopher, with the story about the butterfly. Didn't know if
Mm-hmm.
it was
Yeah.
dreaming as a man. That was a
Yeah,
good article.
yeah,
I I kind of dismissed it at first a little, like, oh, he was just saying holding language at arm's length, but then I went back and finished it, and it wasn't that at all. It was quite Tao Te Ching, and it was pretty similar to the stuff I'm seeing now with these kind of wave patterns almost. Oh,
yeah.
within vacuum, are you familiar with ox carts in Costa Rica? Looks like oh, you
Um,
shared this. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I
I
share it.
thought,
I
yeah,
just share
well,
it. It's because they use, yeah, it's a typical ox cord that they made here, but with this kind of mandala, the wheels. They made these mandalas at the wheels.
Oh shoot, that's crazy.
nice.
Yeah, that's tradition. But
Yeah, there's kind of it seems like a baby tradition to me, but quilting is kind of mandala like,
Yeah.
and on a lot of barns here in the Appalachia region, they'll just have like a single quilt square painted on a barn. I've actually got one hanging on my wall. It's what my grandma made, just a piece of it, but all these patterns like share red color. Oh, it's a nice little wall hanging, even though it's hodgepodge.
look how funny everything is connected. Like we have to make this concert in Madrid, and I get this job, and I'm working for a firm that had for a firm in Madrid actually. So I have colleagues in Madrid now, and you know, like it's crazy. Like why? Like like specific that one. It's all connected.